Hello, I'm the Tailorette and welcome to the second part of remaking a vintage wedding dress. So here I am cutting off the train and I'm about to create a pattern for the skirt so I can remake it in a different material because the skirt was too short on Kristen. So here we go. I am cutting out the netting. It's more like a very lightweight tooling. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 layers of this netting. So the first layer, I'm not going to do as many gathers. I'll probably do a little bit thinner, and then the outer layer, I'll see how that looks first. I'll sew that on top, and then I'll do the second layer because she wants an angelic feel, but not too poofy. So I'm going to cut out the first layer first, sew it on, see how it looks, and then do the second one. So I'm basically doing double the width of the waist right now. So you'll double that. So say the waist of your model is 27 inches. You'll want to double that. So approximately like 56, 54 inches, somewhere around there. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so here we are. I have my bottom layer. So here's my bodice, and I'm going to measure from one end of the waist to the other, 28 and a half inch waist. So I'm going to measure this and see if this is 28 and a half. And if it's not, I will take in the gathers a little bit. So that is 36 inches. So it needs to be taken in just a tad with the gathers, because I put gathers around the waistband or around the waistline. Spread out the gathers so it's even all the way around the waist. And here's our next layer of the tulle. And I put gathers at the top of this one as well. Basically put this inside this right here. And there's the first layer of the tulle. That matches. And then I'll tie the ends so it doesn't come out. As you can see, it's creating a little bit of an angelic feel. This is a petite mannequin, so the bodice is not fitting this way because it's shorter. However, my friend has a longer torso, so the bodice will fit a lot better on her. So now that it is basted, swing this over. And it looks poofy. That is not what it's going to look like. That's why I press it. I love how this is kind of fitting close to the skirt a little bit, the underskirt. So there we go. Once it's all pressed down, it's gonna look way better than this. This looks really not cool. And the next layer will be much fuller. So we'll press that down. So she's going to try on the dress today. So I'm going to basically just baste this to the bodice before I put a second layer on, because before I make any decisions on anything, I would like to have a good look on what it looks like on her before I start setting things in stone. Basted down, and now we'll go to the mannequin to see how it looks. So this is a bit of the mock-up version. It's gonna look better than this, in my opinion. All right, so basically how this part goes is I'm going to press these down because it's too puffy. So I'm also going to stitch some lace to go over it to make sure that it's nice and flat as well. I wish this wasn't a petite mannequin because this would fit much better on the dress form if it was not petite. All right, so for this part, I will take 2 pins and this strip of fabric and lay it across the front, kind of like it looks like it's got an apron on, and pin it to the mannequin like that. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to tip her over like this. Basically I'm turning my iron on high and I'm tipping it so I can get the steam out. Okay, so this is Kristen. So here is the bodice. It looks great. If you look in on the waist, I took up the pieces, like I mentioned, were too chunky and brought them up. And I'm going to fill in the areas with more lace and we decided to shift the arm or the shoulders over a little bit because it was just kind of falling off the shoulder. So it was like this one falling off on the side. So we fixed this side. I'm going to mimic it on that side. Took it in a little bit, and we'll trim the armholes just a tad. And I think it's looking smashing, honestly. I think it looks great. So anyways. So having the fitting was super helpful. So today I cut open the sleeve holes and I'm readjusting the lace to shift it over. And I'm doing all the little touches just to make sure it's all secure. So for now, I'm just fiddling with the arms. I'm gonna try and finish this up, get all the bodice completely sealed off, and then I can put the skirt on and then we'll finish it from there. So here I'm finishing off the sleeve hole with bias tape, but I'm not going into detail about this because that is a tutorial in and of itself. All right, so right now I have the armholes finished. They look kind of, you can see the stitching line. However, I'm not worried about that because I'm putting lace on top of it. Worst case, I could always go back and stitch it down and then take the stitching out if it's showing. So I'm going to actually start pinning the lace to the bodice. I'm basically going to pin everything in place. I did serge these edges here because they were raw. So we don't want raw edges. Raw edges are bad. So at this point I'm adding a little extra pieces to the bodice with the little pieces of lace. However, I will complete all of the lace once the skirt is actually attached to the bodice because it's hard to explain, but the lace will be overlapping into the skirt. But I did do a few touches here on the sides of the bodice before I did the skirt. And here I'm about to start diving into the second layer of the netting. So we're going to do 3 pieces so we're going to do each piece 25 inches at the top of the waist, and then it's going to taper down to say about 40. So yeah, we'll kind of play around with that a little bit. And here I'm folding it over and taking the measurements to make sure the skirt turns out to be the right length, and chopping up the skirt, and then I will repeat that 3 times to have 3 pieces. And the second layer is ready to go on. I added the gathering stitches and I stitched them together. So once the dress is finished and I have everything all finished off, I'm going to press the skirt a little bit more because I feel like it needs to be pressed down in the hips a little bit. But other than that, I'm pleased, and I don't like how this fits on the mannequin because it's a shorter bodice, so the waist is hitting at a more fuller part, but on her it'll be fitting at her smallest part of her waist, so it will look really nice. Now that the skirt is actually attached to the bodice, I can add a few pieces of lace to stitch on top of the bodice and the skirt to blend it a little bit better. And I am finishing up all of the lace on the sides and on the back of the dress as well. So I took it to the mannequin and I actually ended up putting these little pieces of lace right here just to blend it because it looked a little bit too boldly cut off there. So everything was pinned in place, so now it was just time to stitch it down. Everything is set in place, so now the next step is to press the skirt so it doesn't look as poofy. So when you do this step, you'll want to use 100% cotton because it will actually go through a thinner material. So I'm using 100% cotton, and I'm basically just pressing it down with the steam on high. And I'm pressing a little bit down here too, just because I want it to blend, and there's nothing worse than having it all flat up here and all of a sudden it goes to a poof down there. So yeah, I'm pleased with how it looks being pressed. Okay, so she's tried on the dress, and so far she seems to like it. So here's the back. Lovely. And here is the detail down here on the bodice. I added the little lace so it blends with the skirt well. And she doesn't look like a ballerina, so that's a good thing.